introducing both of the speakers, and then maybe Dr. Boya, you can present, and then we'll move on to Dr. Doreen. And at the end, we will take questions from the fellows. So fellows are free to unmute themselves and ask questions, and or like type in chat. But we strongly encourage the fellows to ask questions. Okay. So Vijay, maybe I'll start. Okay, sounds good. So welcome everyone to today's Speak Up Kalpana session. We have two trailblazers with us today, Dr. Radha Boya and Dr. Doreen Annie. Dr. Radha Boya is a fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry, and she is at University of Manchester, where she has her own lab, and she works on fundamentals and applications of atomic scale nano capillaries, graphene capillaries, for example, where she's trying to see if they can use those capillaries for getting safe drinking water, for example. She has received many fundings or grants that are highly competitive and prestigious international fellowships, including Indo-US pre- and postdoctoral fellowship, as well as European Union's Marie Curie Fellowship. So Dr. Radha was named as the UNESCO's L'Oreal Women in Science Fellow too. So, and as well as inventor of MIT Technology Review's Innovators Under 35 list. Thank you, Dr. Boya, for joining us today. It is our honor and pleasure to have you with us. I'm sure the fellows are eager to listen about your inspiring journey. So thank you. I would now like to thank you. I'll now introduce Dr. Doreen Annie. So Dr. Doreen Annie is an animal scientist by academic training with multiple years of experience of working at the intersection of livestock research and agricultural policy and international development. So Dr. Doreen is also an alumni of Young African Leaders Initiative and the UN Women Global Champion for Change. He is the founder and program director of the STEM Bill. It's a non-profit initiative working for a similar goal as ours, where she's working to attract, retain, and advance girls from low-income communities into different STEM fields. And for her work on this recalibrating female representation in STEM fields, she has also received a number of prestigious awards, including Nature Research and Estee Lauder Companies Award, and also been recognized by University of Nottingham. So thank you, Dr. Doreen, for joining us today. Again, it is our pleasure to have both of you with us. And maybe Dr. Boya can share her slides now, and we can begin with this talk.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Anishla, for your kind introduction. And thanks to Darshana and Vijay for inviting me to this beautiful session where we can interact with many young, budding, hopefully future scientists. So let me share my screen. So hopefully you're able to see my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as already Anushila introduced, I'm currently in Manchester. This is my research group in Manchester. So I'm working on graphene and related materials, two-dimensional materials. The topic I'm working on is basically two-dimensional empty space, which is created by removing one or few layers of 2D material. So let's say you take a perfect crystal and remove one layer of perfect layered crystal like graphite. let's say R-moly sulfide, and you remove one layer, you will create an empty space. So this is the capillary or a long tunnel that I'm working with, and flowing fluids through it and studying their properties and studying their application towards sieving molecules. So this is what I'm working on. More about me would be in my research group page. You're welcome to look up more. But since today's talk is more about the research journey, so I'll try to focus on that. So I'm originally from Andhra Pradesh, South India, from a small town called Guntakal. This is where I was born and brought up. And how did I end up in Manchester? So I'll try to focus on that. So this is what is briefly my journey. So I've put here from PhD. So of course, before a PhD, I have done a bachelor's in science and master's in chemistry, and in master's in inorganic chemistry specifically. Until then, I have never left my state, so to say. So first time I've traveled out of my state was for PhD. That is that's where I know Darshana and Vijay as well. So we're all colleagues in we were all colleagues in JNCSR, Bangalore. So from 2007 to 12, I did my PhD in GNCSR, and then from this was in materials chemistry, and then I did a brief postdoc in US, Northwestern University, and from then on I went on to with fellowships. Even this postdoc was a fellowship. So from US to UK, the shift happened because of a Marie Curie fellowship. So I wrote this Marie Curie fellowship to work on 2D materials. And then on, I've stayed back in Manchester with several other fellowships like Leverhulme Fellowship, Kathleen Fellowship, Royal Society Fellowship, and then started my research group with ERC grant. So I've, as you can see, I've worked across disciplines. So initially I started with, my master's was in organic chemistry. But although whatever I read was all like about complexes and inorganic complexes, I did completely different things in PhD. That was nanoscience and material science. From then on, now I'm a professor in physics, so which is completely different department. So initially when I entered, until Northwestern University, I was in chemistry labs. So where you can see wet bench and chemicals, in 2014, when I entered the physics labs, first time I felt, this was a Nobel laureate lab. That's where I was working in as a Marie Curie fellow. First time I felt the lab was completely empty. It was like, I felt as if, is this the lab? Is there something else? Is this just a place to make some circuits? And is there more to this lab? So it just felt empty with meters. But then I got used to myself being in physics department. So I stayed on. So I think nowadays the disciplines and the boundaries across the disciplines are so, so less that they merge as you go up. It's more like a, like an hourglass. So initially we have broader disciplines, they've all merged and then they separate again. So basically you can do anything you like, although your degree is not necessarily in the same field. So this is the Manchester University building, and this is the institute that I'm working on, National Graphene Institute, which is funded by the government for graphene research. So far we saw all these, even when Anushila read, it felt like, oh, there is so much success. So I wouldn't want to focus on that. I just want to say, there's a lot of failures that come through as you progress towards your goal. Believe me, there have been several, things which are not on the CV. So if I would call a CV of failures, there is much more longer CV than CV of success. So even to get into a PhD, it was not a easy task for myself. So first of all, I didn't realize what I wanted to do. I didn't fix what I wanted to do until very late. So until my master's, I wasn't sure I wanted to do something or just stop there and do job. That was the same thing in bachelor's as well. I did apply for various jobs. Somehow I didn't get what I wanted. That's why I went to master's. So same thing happened in master's. One thing which changed my thinking and fixed my goal was a summer fellowship. So then I decided, so there was a summer fellowship which I will also talk about few more opportunities. So probably I should have explored these in much earlier stage. There was no Kalpana STEM, in my time. So I didn't know about many opportunities that were out there. So only in masters, with the help of my teachers, I came to know about summer fellowships, and this was a JNCSR summer fellowship. I applied and did my master, the research internship in Indian Institute of Science. And that's where I got to know about PhD as a career. You can do science as a career. So that was my first exposure to science and research. And then I decided I want to do PhD quite late in my career. So obviously I was not shortlisted in many institutes. I even missed a lot of deadlines. The only place I got shortlisted was JNCSR. The only place that was left to apply was JNCSR. So yeah, so that's what, and the rest is history. So even in postdoc after the PhD, it wasn't very easy. I used to keep every day whom I applied and whom replied, who didn't reply. So there were literally over 100 applications. So I'm following that everywhere at each stage there was rejections. So this list is only an indicative, and I just want to say that sometimes in life, you may feel there are a lot of failures, but it's with everyone. So everyone out there have gone through this, and then only they have gone to the next stage. So only mantra which works is try, fail, get up and try again. Yeah. So this is the only mantra which works. So since this, I don't want to give too much talk here, because I think we should focus on like mainly questions from you guys. But briefly, I feel like if you want to choose research as a career, I would tell you 3 main points what you would get out by choosing research as a career. Basically, you will not do the same thing over and over again. Unlike many other jobs, you will work on new things, and you will have freedom and flexibility. The flexibility part, as you go up, especially as you get your family, and sometimes you have to work-life balance. This part, I think flexibility is much more in research career than other jobs. Of course, it depends on whether it's industry or university or particular, but there is always some flexibility in research careers and the jobs that you can apply to. There are many types of jobs with your research background. You could be anywhere from like writing jobs, like even writing to journals, or like editors, to patent attorneys, to scientists, to university jobs, academic jobs. So there are a wide range of jobs that you can apply to. So obviously, I think as a Kalpana Fellow, you might be aware of many internships, many opportunities, but I will leave some in my slides so that in future, if these are only indicative, which I know, but there may be many, many more out there. And obviously, as a Kalpana Fellow, you may be aware of many more than me. So I just want to highlight that if possibility exists, try to approach for internships. But some countries, they don't allow unpaid internships. So it's much better if you can get a scholarship. And I personally, in my lab, I never encourage anybody who is unpaid, So there are restrictions as well in many countries. So if you get a scholarship, that places you in a much better position to do a research internship. Yeah. So there are few out there, like for Germany, for Japan, I've tried to leave some links, like Indo-Canada, even from for masters. There are Commonwealth scholarships, are the one which even Darshana was on, the Schlumberger Fellowship. So there are many fellowships and scholarships that you can apply to. So you have to first you have to decide what you want to do, and then you can apply to many of these. And if you are in your advanced stage where you want to do a PhD, for many universities there are university specific fellowships. Like this is one example from Manchester. This is a President's Doctor Scholar Award, which is open for internationals, because many countries they don't have internationally, like especially UK, they don't have positions for they have higher fee for international students. That's where these kind of scholarships help. Most of the Europe is free, in terms of like they don't treat they don't treat Europeans and other students differently, but UK has this, which I find it is silly, but what can we do? So that's how it is. So these are 2 links which you can use for looking for jobs, scientific jobs, as well as like PhD positions. And yeah, I think from this, there's just a few information about joint PhD programs between IITs, especially when IIT Kharagpur has now joined between Manchester and Kharagpur. There are few positions for joint PhD studentships where in 2 years, one spends in Kharagpur, one spends in IIT, other 2 years they spend in the other country. This kind of joint programs have an extra added facility that you get to network with many more researchers than you would in a general research program. So, and there are always scholarships listed on the MHRD website from time to time. So keep yourself updated with those. So since I started this session with general outline, so my tips for you would be building your CV, and if it is like, and nowadays software plays as much role as practical experience, especially with the pandemic. It has been much more prominent. So don't distinguish between academic internships or industrial internships. So both have their own added value. So whatever is in your reach. So don't distinguish. Industry internships are as much valuable as academic internships. And if your colleges, if your university is doing some conferences, participate in them. Even if you participate in them, you would actually come to know much more, what kind of research fronts exist, what interests you, these sort of things. Yeah, and if you want to go to a particular country for a PhD, it may help to have a language, but it's not mandatory. Yeah. So yeah, I think with that short intro about myself and my journey, I would now give the stage with this quote. I would like to end my talk. So I'd like to give the stage back to Anushila. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boya. I think the tips that you suggested are going to be really useful, and it's also good to see your journey. I especially like the list, and it reminded me of the things that I failed into and like matching them at the time. So brings back some memories. Thank you, Dr. Boya. Dr. Doreen, would you like to go and share your slide, please?
Yes, I'll be more than happy to. That was a very, very inspiring talk. That was a very inspiring talk, especially when you shared your CV of failures. Oh my God. I think the more people can talk about these things, the more encouraging it is for the up and coming.
Also, if I may add, I'm so sorry, Doreen. So
Yes.
Radha Akka for us is one of the most successful people in research career we know, at least from the outside. So to see the CV of failures, to see it's just mind-boggling. I mean,
I know. So, like we're so obsessed. I mean, it's life. There are ups, there are downs, there are wins, there are failures. But somehow nobody talks about their failures, as you know. But having someone to be vulnerable enough to share where they have failed is just very encouraging to everyone coming behind, and just lets everyone know that look, life happens, but you keep going. So thank you so much, Dr. Radha, for sharing that. That was very inspiring.
Thank you, Doreen. Thank you, Vijay, as well. Thank you. Yeah, I think each one of us have go through the similar, journey. It's just not visible. That's all.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Dr. Doreen, we cannot see. At least I cannot see you. Can
you
everyone?
Can't?
No, I can see the slide. But for some reason, your video has gone like black.
Okay, hold up, please. I'll try that again. Can you see me now?
No.
It's not black, but you can't see.
Yes.
Yeah, it's back. Yes.
It's
yes,
back?
We can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
My webcam sometimes just, I can't see myself though.
Oh. You're spotlighted.
But it's okay. It's okay. Fine. Yeah. It's fine. If you don't mind, maybe along the line, could you just take a snapshot of like or a snip of your screen or something, since I can't do it from here. Maybe along the line. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to say thank you so much to everyone at Vision Shala for inviting me again to your platform. I'm always very honored to share my story, to share my thoughts, my ideas, and I'm always very excited about learning from everyone. And to all the fellows on Kalpana, I'm going to say you're very, very lucky to be having this insight, this exposure, this network, this connection. Please take advantage of it. It's life-changing. I didn't have the opportunity to listen to people like Dr. Rada and all the amazing other people that have been coming your way. And I just hope that you leverage the power and the energy that is in all these speak up sessions. So today I'm going to be talking about how career landscapes are changing and how we could leverage the place and the power of entrepreneurship, particularly STEM entrepreneurship. And I'm going to pick up from the first speaker. You see how she transitioned from physics to from chemistry to physics, yeah? Okay, just take note of that because we're going to get into it at some point. So again, my name is Doreen. I am an animal scientist. My first degree was in animal science, second in animal science, third degree in animal science, but then I am shifting towards the livestock industry, and I am now a policy expert and a development consultant. And then also I am very proud to say that I am the program director and the founder of the STEM Bell, a nonprofit that is getting more girls into science. So I'll just give you a very brief overview of, my life timeline. I think I can say that. So it all started with a bachelor's degree, like I mentioned earlier, in animal science. I got this in Nigeria. And then in 2015, I went over to Ghana to start a master's degree. And then in 2017, I volunteered. It was an unpaid volunteering program for United Nations Champion for Change program. And along the line, we needed to do a pet project. Please, can you see me?
Yes, Doreen.
Okay.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, along the line,
Yes.
we had to do a pet project, and my project was centered on getting more girls into STEM, and that was how come the project was born. So before I completed my master's degree, I was selected for the Schlumberger Faculty for the Future Foundation Fellowship. Dr. Ajay mentioned it in her talk, and I have just completed my PhD last month. In between all of this, I've had multiple work experiences, including working at the UN, working with several international organizations, World Bank funded projects, UK aid funded projects. I have also won, I've just recently won a Global Talent Award, and that's why I'm currently in Australia. And I am starting off my business, 447 Group, and what we're focusing on is agri-tech, edutech, educational tech, agricultural tech, and then development consulting. And this is just where we are as of today. The story continues. I'm still growing. I'm still evolving, but let's go into a bit more detail. I'll share my STEM story in detail. So when I was growing up, my mom studied a non-STEM course. I'm not going to mention the name of the course, but she studied a non-STEM course, and she was trained to become a teacher, a non-science teacher. Now, she always used to tell us about her frustrations when they go for interviews, and for non-science subjects, there are thousands and thousands of applicants. And it's so difficult to land a role because there are so many applicants in non-science subjects. But when it comes to science subjects, physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, they have very few teachers that came for interviews. And so most times, all of those teachers are given jobs. And she would go and, she'll come back most times without any luck. It took her having 2 master's degrees and then even diverting a bit in her career to be able to land a very good role now. Backstory, she's completing her PhD. Now, this story, my mom's frustration, she would come home and tell us about, how frustrated she was at her job interviews. And it was sinking in. And subconsciously, we were telling ourselves we didn't want to go through this. She was also encouraging us that I don't want you all to go through this. I think you should explore courses or careers in STEM. And we were soaking it in, but we didn't really know the importance of what she was saying until we grew older. Well, along the line, as I grew a bit, I had the opportunity to go and assist my father in his pharmacy store. My dad had a small pharmacy store in Zaria where I grew up. And after school, during the weekends and during holidays, I would go over to his store and assist the salespeople and the pharmacists there, And then along the line, I found myself picking up surgical materials, picking up tablets, picking up medicines to read, picking up empty boxes of medicines, and then to just read the leaflets. I was reading about contraindications. I was reading about, the ingredients that were used to make these medicines. And somehow I got interested. I wanted to know how these medicines were helping patients. His pharmacy store was just opposite the hospital. So I was interacting with a lot of patients and parents of patients. You see, so all of these two experiences from my mom and my dad, I would say was the foundation of myself getting into science fields. That was how come my interest in science got solidified. And then I became an animal scientist after studying for a bachelor's degree in agriculture, a master's degree in agriculture, and a PhD in agriculture. But then along the way, some way into my master's degree, I noticed the gap. I noticed that, I was reflecting and I was like, look, why are there more men in science fields compared to women? And then I carried out a number of experiments with students in primary schools, secondary schools, and I realized that stereotypes have eaten so deeply into our fabric. We have been made to believe that women can only be certain things and men could be the other things. So I carried out a survey with some students and they thought that women should be nurses, teachers, bankers, hairdressers, caterers, and if you're lucky, doctors. And I was like, no, it shouldn't be so. We need more women in other STEM fields. We need more women in engineering, in data science, across the board, all the way to the decision-making level. And with that conviction, I birthed the STEM Bell. The STEM Bell is a non-profit, and what we do is we're trying to get more girls from poor families, low-income communities to take up careers in STEM. We have a 3-step agenda, and it's to attract girls to science subjects first, then retain those girls in science classes, and then advance them as they progress to STEM courses all the way to decision-making levels. So we've been running for 5 years, and we've been doing amazing work, and we've been seeing so much positive feedback and results from our projects. Now, I advanced again in my career. I went on to do my PhD. I was taking up jobs, and then I noticed another gap again. This time around with my career. And with that, I have begun the process of starting up my business called 447 Group. And one of what we're going to be doing is solving some problems using technology, solving some problems in agriculture using technology, solving some problems in education using technology, and also offering development consulting services to companies, to governments, to nations, to state departments, etc. So with all I have said now and how I have dangled from one career to another, it is safe to say that the idea of having one long-lasting career is slowly becoming a thing of the past. And it is simple. The world is changing. What the world needs are changing. Just look at what happened over the pandemic and how we are now able to connect with each other thousands and thousands of kilometers apart, just using a screen. So everything is changing, and this change is not about to stop. It's going to keep changing. What you think is in vogue now would evolve and develop and get better. And the best thing we could do with ourselves is not lose ourselves chasing what is happening, but adapt and evolve our careers, our passions, our skills to per season, per time. Now, I'm going to first drop this here. As scientists, as people in technology, in engineering, particularly people that want to get into, the core science, the core research, the core academia, I'd like to encourage you that, and I would like to remind you first that you are a problem solver. You're a problem solver, and please do not be afraid. You are developing solutions for governments. You're developing solutions for the world. You're developing solutions for people around you, for communities. So do not be afraid to test those solutions, prototype them, brand them, market them, and monetize them. You have the right. You have the capability. Don't be afraid of being a business person, a business researcher, like an entrepreneur researcher. Do not be afraid in you, and you can do it. So now, why become an entrepreneur? We already know that, entrepreneurship comes with so many benefits. Of course, it comes with a lot of cost, but we know that some of the benefits are, you have, you enjoy the satisfaction that what you've designed, what you've created is meeting world needs. You enjoy the satisfaction that you're part of the people solving global problems directly. Of course, sometimes there may be a bit more money compared to, non-entrepreneurial pathways, and then sometimes there's a bit of flexibility. But I'm not sold out on that. For me, it is the fact that I can identify a problem that is important to the world, and that I can develop something to solve that problem, and I can push it to people who need that problem, and I watch them pour in money to get my solution. It's very, very satisfying, and I hope that you begin to explore this if you haven't considered it yet. So now, if you have to become a STEM entrepreneur, even with your research abilities, with your academia abilities, or your academia dreams, you don't have to drop one for the other, I think. What I would think you should do is first that you should explore the vastness of your chosen career. That you're in engineering, for example, do not confine yourself to just engineering. Look into your engineering career. What more can be done with that electrical engineering degree? What more can be done with that biomedical degree? What machinery can you develop and design and prototype? Look at how vast your career can be. What can you add to that career and then metamorphose it into something that is going to be groundbreaking? Do you need to add tech? Do you need to add some kind of agile skills? Do you need to add some kind of people management or project management skills to just fleshing up what you have so that you become a bit more highly sought after? So if you're going to become an entrepreneur, consider thinking of, exploring the vastness. There's so much more in that career you're sitting on than you have already explored. So explore it more. Secondly, you have to be very observant and inquisitive. Why ask the question why every time? Why is this happening? Why can't it be better? But we've been doing this for 5 years. I know 5 years is a short time. Why can't it improve? The world is going to change. Make some focus. The world is going to change. What can we do to make sure that this thing that you have in your hand, this career, this project you're currently working on, is still relevant in 5 years' time? Be inquisitive. Probably tie your goals to maybe the United Nations SDGs. See where the world is leading to, or see what are the pressing issues. How can your career solve one of the United Nations goals? How can you develop solutions that governments would now want to buy so that they can also meet up the SDG goals in their countries? Think from a global perspective. Think big.
but don't be afraid to start from where you are. Think global, but start local. And for you to get to the global level from the local level, you need to be a fast learner. You need to be open to learning. You might need to take some skills that you've never heard of before, skills you've never been taught in your university, skills you've never been taught in Kalpana. Be open to learning, be open to grabbing more information and starting from where you are. Don't wait until you get the $100,000 grant before you start. With the $300 grant, start. Start with one person, start with a community, grow into a county, then move up to a state or a region, take over your country, go global, go continental. Think big, start small, learn fast. And of course, I've said about developing yourself. So there are so many skills that, that have come up today that we didn't know about many years ago. I'll take for an example. Everybody's talking about being a Scrum Master, having the Agile thing and all of that. We didn't know about it so, many, many years ago, but it's come up and this is not going to be the last of it. I don't know if you remember when there was a time the PMP, Project Management Professional Certificate was everything that the world needed. We've gone a bit past that now, and then we have other things. Think if you need to learn about product management, do you need to learn about product marketing, product ownership and product design? What do you need to learn about? Think about it. What would help you, package that career you have, that STEM career you have, and then brand it and monetize it. Whatever skill you think you need, be open to developing yourself, be open to learning more. And I'm going to wrap up by saying that having a transdisciplinary approach to solving problems will always, always make you highly sought after. Like she said, the hourglass thing. So it starts from a lot, channels into a little, so it's changing. But having a transdisciplinary approach, either you're in chemistry or you're in physics or you're in engineering, wherever you are, make sure that at every point in time, you have transdisciplinary skills to approach a problem and you would see yourself being called for in very high places. Thank you so much again for the privilege. I'm very happy to take up questions on this platform, and should in case we are unable to finish up all the questions or you just want to write me, feel very free to reach out to me on all my social media platforms during the STEM bell, and that's my email address as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Doreen. Thank you for sharing how the landscape is changing and how we should be thinking entrepreneurial and not just traditional track. And it's also, I think both of you highlighted that we need to think about how science is not just like one subject that you like. It's more interdisciplinary now, and it's becoming more and more important to do interdisciplinary science and blend these boundaries and think beyond my physics notebook. So thank you both of you, and I would now open the stage for questions. Fellows, the ball is in your court now. I have Sakshi. Sakshi, go ahead. Sakshi?
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
At first, I want to say this session was amazing. It was very inspiring. So my question is for Radha ma'am. You have mentioned about internships. So I just want to know what is the difference between industrial internship and academic internship, and how do you know where you want to go? Like which type of internship is best for which type of career? Like, so yeah, this is like.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So maybe at first you don't know what you want to do, right? So only when you get the exposure, you may only when you see how life is like in that job, In my own case, I saw how a life of a PhD student was when I was doing academic internship. So basically, industrial internships, for instance, Reliance Industries would have some, regular opportunities. One of my existing PhD student, he had done an internship with Reliance actually. So on research, even Tata would have. So basically, these come up from time to time. So I think it is difficult to decide in the beginning, what you want to do, unless you hear from others their own experience as working in industry or working in academia, right? So internship is like a mini, version of what you would experience, right? As when you choose that particular job. So it helps not only gaining skills and building your CV, but also gives you an experience of how your life is going to be, if you choose that as a job. So I think a priori is difficult to know, but maybe if you have if you talk to people who have done these kind of, for myself, I haven't done industrial internship myself. So I have never actually gone to, other side of the coin. So I've been always on this side of the coin, which is academia. Yeah. I've interacted, with companies, but never worked in a company setting or in an industry setting. But many of my colleagues, they have gone towards industry after masters, especially in chemistry. It is quite common because there are lots of pharma companies. In Andhra, there is a pharma hub, or Hyderabad. So there is a lot of pharmaceutical companies. So many people just right after MSc, they jump, or even BTech chemical engineering, they jump into the industry, Reddy's labs and many more. And then they see the setting and they decide, okay, this is suitable for me or not. And then they come back to PhD. So this is, I think, I'm sorry, I'm not answering your question straight, but I hope I've given you some understanding of what to expect.
Can I add something to what
yes,
Nada said?
Please.
So
please.
with I have done industry internships. Yeah, I have done in my master's degree, in my PhD as well. I've done a lot of industry volunteering programs as well. So most of the organizations that offer these put it on their websites. For example, with international development, you have the likes of World Bank, you have the likes of African Development Banks, United Nations. They all offer industry internships, all paid. Sometimes they take you to the US, sometimes it's remote, sometimes you have to go into Rome, Italy for their head office. So all of these opportunities are available. And you don't have to be like someone in direct economics or policy. They take on people who have data science skills because there's loads of maybe analytics opportunities currently. So if you have data science skills, modeling, coding, all these kind of things, you stand a chance to intern or even do like a temporary thing with them. Also, there are lots of companies, maybe consulting companies, business analyst companies that offer internships to university students. Don't limit yourself because you're maybe in India and you think some of these companies would support you to travel over to this particular country to work for a while. Some of them have remote internships that you can do, which would really strengthen your CV. Sometimes you complete the remote internship and from there you transition into a full staff and then they fly you out of your country. So most of these companies, try and look out for their career sections on their websites. And then you have to spend some time to do a bit of research. Look out for their career sections and then try and see what's available. Sometimes you have to even write. You could write a cold email and sell yourself to them. Tell them why they need you. And it could bring something. I wouldn't rule that out. And the last thing I'm going to say is to network. A closed mouth is most times a closed destiny. If you want something, open your mouth and say you want it. Even if the person cannot give that to you, ask the person, can you point me in the direction of someone who you think might be able to give this to me? Or can you just keep me in your mind, and then if you think of something or think of someone that knows what I'm looking for, could you Could you mention my name? And it will shock you 5 weeks after, and then someone is writing you to say, oh, I remember I had this conversation with you. Check this link out. I think it might fit you. So I think the opportunities are there, especially for industry internships. I don't know so much about research internships because I feel you have to be like within the system, maybe as a master's student or a PhD student or something, but that's the bit I know about industry internships.
Thank you so much for adding those excellent points. When you're on the other side of the coin, you have done industry.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for
Which
that.
Is amazing. Which is amazing for this session, since you're on the research side and I'm on the industry side.
Yeah. I think maybe I should also add, like, for the academic internships within India, there are Indian Academy of Sciences, JNC Fellowship. These two are like every year they do publish fellowships every year, and there are several other. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I would go with Pratibha. Pratibha, would you unmute yourself?
Pratibha is one of our fellows who always has a video on. So we usually encourage all our fellows video on and then talk. So we're very proud of her.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, Pratibha.
Okay. Radha ma'am, I love the idea of yours of showing up the whole failure journey of you. It was very inspirational for all of us. Actually, I was interested in your graphene project. So you said it is applicable in molecular sieving. I am a student of biotechnology, so we there's a technique like gel electrophoresis where we separate the DNA and all the proteins. So can we apply that graphene molecular sieving activity into the biotech field for the separation of the molecules?
Thank you, Pratibha. Thank you for your question, and thank you for liking what I told about failures. So not many people want to see the failures, so that's why I want to highlight it. So basically about the application of graphene capillaries. So we have started a bit of research into biology as well. The only initial study that we have done is passing the DNA, just like what you mentioned, electrophoresis, right? So here as well, like with electric field, driving. So this is like a pipe, right? So the DNA is more globular in the solution because it doesn't have to stay straight. But when we drive with the field from one side to the other side of the pipe, so we can see that the DNA can stretch and go pass through these. There is an entropic barrier, first of all, that we can see clearly. We need to have the pipe at certain height for the DNA to pass through. So this is the basic biophysics we could learn about by passing the DNA, and we could clearly see the knots and sorts of like DNA has some knots and like folds. So we could read all those in the electrical signal. In terms of separation of DNA, we haven't, because we were more focusing on translocation of single DNA and looking at the DNA structure. So in this one, partly we have succeeded, but we haven't gone through individual base, because individual base, like what are the ATCG, if you can read the composition, that's in a faster manner, that has much more wider relevance. Of course, there are nanopore technologies. So this is like Oxford nanopore is one of the successful nanopore technologies where they can read what is in a DNA. So yeah, I think this is a very fruitful direction to look for in research as well, especially nanopore sequencing. Because with these kind of devices, diseases, coming through, new diseases coming through, it's always important to know what is the genome sequence. Mm-hmm. So any faster technology, would be rapid technology, on-site technology would be always helpful. So this is a very interesting direction to do research into. If you are looking forward to looking at, either an internship or like research project or even like doing a PhD, this is a very nice direction.
I'm so glad, ma'am. I'm actually very glad, because this is the question that first arose in my mind. And yesterday also Vijay sir have told us about that graphene project you are working on, and I was so very excited and curious to know more about it. And I'm very glad that I'm going in the right direction by correlating my subject and that your subject also. And my next question is to Doreen ma'am. You said that you have done your graduation and masters in animal science. So what projects, can you please tell us about the few projects that you have worked on, like transdisciplines, where you have applied your knowledge of animal science into the real world?
Dr. Doreen, you're muted.
Sorry. So to get your question right, you said what projects I have done in my research that I'm applying to industry. Is that correct? Fantastic. So during my PhD, I worked on chickens. I worked with chickens and eggs. And what I was trying to identify was what is the difference? I'm putting it in very simple terms now. What is the difference based on weight, performance, feed conversion ratio, and egg quality between two hens of the same genetic makeup? So everybody expects that when you have, maybe 500 birds of the same breed, the same age, put under the same environmental conditions, you would expect that they would consume fairly the same amount of feed. There may be a bit of variation because everyone is different, yeah? But you would expect that they will consume fairly the same amount of feed and give you fairly the same amount of eggs and fairly the same quality of eggs. But we didn't think so. And we went in to investigate, and we saw that when you have, for example, 500 birds, the same breed from the same parent stock, that the ones that are heavier in weight, we found that they consume a lot of feed to maintain that heavy weight. And then the quality of their eggs are poorer. The quality of their eggs are slightly lower than the quality of eggs from hens that are slimmer in weight. Now, how does this affect the farmer in the field? A lot of farmers, when they have a poultry, outfit enterprise, it is believed, in fact, actually, science says that the chicken needs to get to a certain body weight for her to get into, laying, for her to start laying, right? So what a lot of farmers do is to force feed birds. You feed them a lot because you want them to be bigger so that they can start laying. What my research has pointed out is you have to be very careful, because when you feed birds and they become too big, yes, they will come into lay about 6 days earlier than the ones that are slimmer, but their feed conversion ratio becomes very bad throughout. So they consume a lot more feed to give you the same eggs that, slimmer birds will consume less feed for. Secondly, the quality of eggs that they will produce is slightly lower than birds that you didn't force feed. Thirdly, we found that the heavier birds produce eggs that had a lot more feces on the shell compared to slimmer birds. Now, what this implies for farmers is that, in the West, when eggs have feces on them, they don't make it to the market. So that is a source of loss for the farmer. So when you try to feed birds to become heavier, they produce dirty eggs and then constitutes a loss to the farmer. Now, my project was sponsored by Australian Eggs. So half of the time I left the UK, came to Australia to, do this work. And then we were interacting directly with farmers. We were, answering some of their questions, sharing our results with them, and ensuring that they are understanding what our research was and considering applying them at the farm. So I have just completed, and I'm hoping that we can put out more work, put out more publications about what we have found, so that more people, more farmer groups can read, more researchers can read and try out the research wherever they are. And let's see if there's a similarity. And if you want to read more, on the papers that I've published, you can check me out on ResearchGate, or you could just type my name and then you should be able to see a couple of my papers.
Also, sorry, Anusha, I just wanted to add, because in our mentoring in the last 2-3 batches, what we usually see is students find it difficult to imagine different fields and they want to stay in their own field. So the interdisciplinary thing that Doreen also had mentioned in her slides is very important, because if you take Radha's example, she's a chemistry who's working on physics problems in the physics lab that she spoke about, and now she's talking about biological samples. So she has, so you will have to embrace interdisciplinary at some point. You cannot say I like biology, I don't like physics and all of that. Sooner or later, what we find is, when I had a big problem with biology, but if you start looking at subjects, you love them. If you love one, you love all. So if you just break the initial barrier, you trust me, you will love all the fields. So at least from the speakers, hopefully you know, like Doreen's one, the example is so amazing, right?
I think to add on to that point, another misconception is like biologists don't need maths. That's probably absolutely not true, because math is a subject that is needed everywhere. So if you're scared of math, you have to, like, there are multiple resources nowadays available where you can build those skills and get over that fear. Because if you want to go to research or even in an industry, you would need some kind of basic math foundation skills. So, all right, Nita.
Hello, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Am I audible? Actually, yes. I'm suffering from the bad network, so it's very difficult.
You're good.
Yeah. Okay, actually, it's been great listening to you. Mainly, like Doreen ma'am, we are highly motivated. Like think globally and start locally. That was a line which kicked me, and thank you very much for that. Such lines. And I have a question with Radha ma'am. Like ma'am, basically, same thing is happening with me. Like I am also doing interdisciplinary work. My basics, post-graduation, graduation is something different, and now I am working with something different else. So yesterday, as Vijay sir like explained about graphene and everything, I have gone through many papers like how we can utilize the graphene for the different things. So like I'm working with the oils and with have some difficulties for really starting the first like from where to start. So I have gone through and I have already get a lead. Like it's been a great thanks to you, because I already got the lead that I can use the graphene for my oil separation work also. So I just want to ask whether I can get this in small quantity over here in India, because whenever we are looking for the graphenes and some enzymes, it will be in a large quantity. So whether we can get it in a small quantity over here?
Yeah. Thanks for the wonderful question. So basically, graphite production, is a lot more in India than elsewhere. So it's actually number 4 in the world. So it's a pity that graphene invention happened somewhere else. It should have happened you would think that it should have happened somewhere in either India, China, where there is a lot of production. So, but fortunately, there are companies now in Bangalore as well. There is one in Tirupati, there is one in Bangalore, who are selling large quantities of graphene solutions. I can search those and leave a link in the chat just as we speak. So but there are even in Europe as well, there are a lot of companies who are selling graphene. Depending on the quality, there are people who are selling graphene, very high quality graphene for a sensing application, or which is like a circuit, which may be more expensive. But for biological applications, what you need is biocompatible solutions, or these kind of liquid solutions. So those are also available. So there is a variety of products of graphene that are available. So and I can I can give some links in India companies, local companies, and also some which are European. So I can leave those links in the chat as we speak. Thank you.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you. I have one more question to the Doreen ma'am. Actually, ma'am, I have been worked with the female infertility problem. So I want to work with the male infertility problems also. So as you have a background of animal science, so I want to know that whether it is very difficult to induce and to carry out the experiment while we are inducing the male infertility in rats or some another like species.
You mean infertility in rats?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's always a mix. It could always be done. And besides, a lot of research, I mean, mice are very excellent models, rats, mice, guinea pigs, they're always very excellent models, you know, for you to try out different things, especially reproductive techniques. There is a lot of restrictions these days, ethics, you know, animal welfare rules that needs to be followed. You need to have your ethics approvals. You know, it's a long process. You need to undergo series of trainings to be able to carry out those experiments. But I tell you, it is possible. I have done a lot of, I mean, I worked with chickens, but when I did my ethics training, animal handling training, you know, animal welfare training, we had our practicals with rats and with mice. So yes, I think it's possible. What you just need to do is find a suitable program, you know, that that does this, and then it's upward from there.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
The best.
Thank you.
Thanks, both of you. I think I'm loving how different fellows are connecting their work to both of your works. So that's amazing to see that they are also trying to think very interdisciplinary. Thank you for the questions, Meeta. I would now move on to Rashi. Rashi, would you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, Rashi, go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, ma'am. First of all, thank you so much for the very motivational and inspiration talk that you both have given. We are deeply touched by it, and I'm sure, you know, we'll take lessons today. And I had a question for you, Radha, ma'am. So you said that there are a lot of scholarships. Like you mentioned, one was Chairperson scholarship, which is provided to study for a master's degree in UK. So, ma'am, the thing is that they require minimum 2 years of work experience in order to get that scholarship. But what if we don't want a 2-year work experience age gap? I mean, the gap to work in an industry, and directly want to go for a master's degree in UK. Is there any alternative? And is there something else that can be done for which we can get a scholarship for directly, so that we can directly pursue masters after our bachelor's?
Thank you, Rashi, so for the question. So basically, there are Commonwealth scholarships for masters as well. So which do not require any particular experience, but it helps if you have some research experience so that your CV stands out from others, you know, or anything that you have, even like being a Kalpana STEM fellow, you know, that's also an experience that you can add on to, right? So you've got to expose yourself to different fields of research, you know, from the speakers, right? So anything that you have done, you know, adds on to your CV. So Commonwealth is one particular scholarship which is global. However, there would be also, you know, particular, every university may have like their own scholarships. Like Manchester will have some dedicated funding for, you know, sponsoring international studentships. Likewise, most of the universities have that. So if you have some university in mind, I would suggest first looking up, you know, if they have any sponsored positions. So these would be, of course, competitive because it's a global competition, but this is also another route for masters. I would say there are, of course, fewer fellowships for masters than PhD. That is true. That is totally true, especially in European countries. In US, it will be different. I think you will have Fulbright, you know, Fulbright fellowships as well. But here you can even apply for Schlumberger for masters. Am I right, Vijay?
No.
No, only for PhD.
Just PhDs and
PhD and postdoc. Yeah, faculty
but,
for the future.
Yeah, just to support her, I've put a link in the chat.
Yeah, that's very
you know, the Scholars for Dev. Yeah, there's some like some Somewhere you can also get internships for is, I'll share the link, Opportunities Desk. I'll share a couple of links now, but you could, for Scholars for Devs, I found Schlumberger Faculty for the Future Foundation on Scholars for Dev.
Right.
So
right.
they are real. They are real. Some people ask me, do you know anyone in Schlumberger? I don't know anyone. I just saw it online, put in my best application, and I was selected. So you can do it. Put your best foot forward.
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion, Doreen. I think.
Yeah, it is.
I think online, if you look up, there will be definitely more, because these links are only some things which we know, but there will be definitely more. And I'm sure like you have the best mentors as well right now. Vijay and Darshana. Darshana herself is a Schlumberger fellow. So.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I'll surely go through the links. Thank you for sharing that with me, Doreen and Radha, ma'am. My second question would direct to you, Doreen, ma'am. So you stated this your line saying that think globally, start locally. So my question is, how do we commercialize science? So science is something which we all have studied and we all have been educated in that. But as an entrepreneur, how do you commercialize science into a product and how to do it efficiently?
That's a very good question. And I think that was like the center of my talk. Just like every other thing, toothpaste, of course, is science. We know toothpaste is science. But let me even start with McDonald's. There is the science behind McDonald's, but let's just look at the business aspect. The truth is business. You might have the solution to death. You might have developed a solution, to stop people from dying. But if you don't package it, if you don't put it out, if you don't brand it, if you don't market it, people will not know. People will not pay premium for it. There's a standard way to do business. You have the very mocked up and mushed up idea. You start fine tuning it. Like the vision. It starts from the vision. You start fine tuning it. It gets into a prototype. You test it. You gather reviews. You start to brand, and then you launch. The whole pathway for product development and all of that. The same way you do that the same way Google, we develop a software, let's say, for example, Google Duo or Google Pay or something. The same way it comes as a mashed up idea and they start fine tuning it and they go through the normal business processes, putting out advertisements, putting out word about it, marketing it, making sure that it's something that people would want to buy, grabbing the attention of people. That is the same way you can package your science solutions, for public consumption. Think about it like, what problem would this solution solve for the everyday man, the nursing mother, the student who is walking to school, the rich, the poor, the wealthy? Think about how would this solve their problem? How would this improve their quality of life? How would this make them enjoy life and living a bit more? Then think of applying the standard business strategies to that solution. And I think you should be good to go. I really love YouTube because there are lots of valuable information you can find there. You could start there. You don't need to do a course yet. You could start there, and then if you need a bit more skills, then you could start advancing to, take courses and just understand product development, product management, marketing, management, and all of that.
Also, just to add, Doreen, Rashi, if you finish the incubator, once you finish it, you're also talking to our partners to have an entrepreneurship track, so that you get complete training on that, right?
Fantastic. That would be very helpful.
We'll be very excited for that.
Rashi, one more thing that I wanted to add is a lot of institutes now have, like, for their PhD students, they have incubation centers. So if, as a PhD researcher, if you come up with an idea that you can monetize and be an entrepreneur, you can be incubated at that incubation cell of your research institute, and they give you guidance on how to take the idea into the market. Yeah.
Yes.
So
right.
those are the things that you can look at. It's available in India now and also in a lot of universities abroad.
I agree. We had that in my university. I think it's called Ingenuity Lab. It's like an entrepreneurship and innovation center that supports. It's really amazing. That's very correct. That's very correct. Sorry, you were going to say something, Radha.
No, it's, yeah, I think I second what you both have said. So most of the universities are adopting this route to, develop the ideas, guide the students to develop them into further products. So there's also one program like within my own university wherein they offer it like a prize. So they do it like a competition. It's sponsored by Britt El Harari, the one which who discovered the hard disk. So on their name, it's done as a competition, and then whoever wins it will get a grant, and they can develop their own product. So yeah, and also I see several people asking about scholarship links. I can leave my slides with Vijay and Anushila and Darshana. So if I have few of them listed in the slides. So if you want to, you can circulate to those members. So yeah, so I see like in the chat there were requests for like research internships. The ones I know, I will share the slides, the same ones that I've shown.
Okay, thank you so much. And also they have access to the recorded session.
Recording,
so they can always go back and look at
Perfect.
Ma'am, I would
So
like
Anushila, we are running a bit out of time, so let's keep.
Rashi, we would have to move on to someone else. Let's give others a chance.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have like 10 minutes of official thing. After that, it depends on the priorities of the speaker, of course. So let's move very quick.
So please everyone stick to one question, just so that everyone gets a chance. Alina?
Yes, can you hear me? I'm so sorry I can't turn on my camera because my network is... Yeah, it was really nice listening to both Radha ma'am and Doreen ma'am. It is actually the first time that I'm joining in a live session. I couldn't because of some issues, and I'm really glad that I decided to join in today. I actually just wanted to ask both of you guys, like you're a career scientist and you've worked. So how do you deal with imposter syndrome? Like, how do you deal with that? Like how, for me, even if I know something, I always, the thing in my back of my head, I don't know really anything. And I'm, so how do you deal with that? Thank you.
That's a wonderful question, Alina. I think one thing for sure I can say is the imposter syndrome doesn't go away.
Yeah.
So once you have it, it's there with you forever. Mostly, very few people, overgrow it. I still have it. So many times I feel I don't know much. Before when you are discussing with your topic with someone, who is senior to you, or sometimes you are in a conference and you're listening to a talk, and then you just feel like, oh, I don't know anything about this topic. So it just stays with you. That's what my personal feeling is. But maybe there are few people who have grown out of it. But I think what helps is, sometimes it's only a momentary feeling. Once you focus on yourself, it can be avoided. And there are times where this feeling can lead you to, especially when you have applied something and you failed, this imposter syndrome sets in on top of it. So what can help is, in my case, I try to keep something which I can look at for positivity. Suppose if I have received an email from, somebody who has, for me, what gives happiness is like if someone has achieved something and they have been inspired by me, that gives me like that most, pleasure and happiness. So whenever I receive something like that, I keep that email in a specific folder, which I can look back and feel proud of myself. So you can have some moments, where you can feel proud of yourself. It could be you've won something, you've got first marks, or, you've been praised by your teacher. It could be anything, right? So, but these are tokens of your, achievements. Those can help. That's what I personally, do. So I have these little tokens of achievements, which I keep, looking back to feel proud of myself. This is just visual, of course, everything is in your mind, but it also helps to keep these in visual. So that's my little suggestion. But of course, maybe there's more we can hear from Doreen.
Oh, this is a very interesting topic. And when she asked about that question, I was like, oh, don't we all have imposter syndrome? It's more like our shadow. But in addition to everything she has said, I'm just going to encourage everyone. Don't let your background or where you're coming from limit you. I come from Africa. I'm Nigerian. I didn't grow up in a very rich family. So sometimes when you attain certain heights, when you get into certain squares, certain centers, you start to doubt yourself. You start to ask yourself, how did I get here? You forget that you wrote the application. Your application was reviewed. You weren't pitied. Your application was good enough, and that's why you're here. But sometimes we forget that. I like what she said about, writing your tokens of honor and all of that. If you need to go and look at those things, go and look at it. But don't remember where you're from, but don't allow that, doubt yourself. You are so much more than you think. Every time I get to realize that I'm so much more than I think. When I was doing my PhD, allow me to just, highlight a little bit. I presented my work at so many conferences. I won so many awards. I was featured so many times across my university, across the city where I was living, globally. I won so many awards. But sometimes I'll be like, I'm sure everyone else could have done it. No, not everyone could do it. You have to always tell yourself, no, not everyone could do it. If everyone could do it, then it will be everywhere, and then it won't be celebrated like that. So always remember, you're that special. Not everyone can do what you're doing. It's not everyone that can.
Right in my PhD, what I started with the topic of research, my supervisor gave me enough freedom that I can choose whatever I want. And that was also kind of necessary because there was no immediate senior. So I had a senior who was writing a PhD thesis, so there was a 4-year gap. There was no PhD student. So it just happened that from the beginning, I had to be independent. So I went with like what topics I liked. So this is where, when I wrote the fellowship, so I like to work on like 2D materials and graphene. So I didn't realize that I'm going to be in physics department. So, but this is the research I liked. And actually, as you grow, like as you go forward in your career, the boundaries are very feeble, they just disappear, I would say. So maybe, of course, you need to, touch back your basics in like I needed to learn more about like fluidic equations, which I hadn't, I had forgotten right after undergraduation. So I had to go back to a few basic books as well. But putting the thoughts on the paper and looking at literature and writing up things what I needed to like read more, that helped me cross the boundaries quite simply. But there is always something like I didn't completely switch from what like there is always some part of the research which I know very well, and there is some part which I don't know about. So in PhD, I learned a lot about like nanoscience and nanolithography. So that was my foothold where I'm strong. And further applications are, measurements that were completely physics, which I had no idea about. So it also helps to have like some ground where where you're comfortable, and your topic should have like something which you're comfortable with. If you're completely into new thing, maybe that is still possible. Probably that would lead to, sometimes you may feel low that you don't know anything. So this is something, a balance of, what you know and what you don't know, that helps a lot. Maybe if Doreen has any points further, she can also add.
Yeah, I think I really just agree with you. I think we could just move on to the next person. I think you've really shed deeply on that.
Thank you.
So if both the speakers are okay, we have one more fellow who wants to ask a question. We are already at 7:30. Is it okay with you if we take one more question?
Yeah, perfectly sure. And there was also a question in the chat. I think I don't mind even answering that.
Okay. Chahat, would you?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, ma'am, for inviting me to ask a question. Ma'am, my question is basically like if we have two opportunities in our life, so how we are going to decide like which one is better? Sometimes we like go with one opportunity and regret in our life, like we should do that. So how to overcome with that feeling?
That's a very interesting question, actually. So maybe I will exemplify it with my own case. So I had this in many times, many times in my career, I didn't have too many options, as I said. So, but there was one time I had an option, So that was during my moving from USA to UK. So I interviewed IBM and Manchester at the same time, in the same week. Actually, it so happened that it happened in the same week. So, and I heard back the results just the next week. So IBM also offered. They offered like a 3-year position, which they can consider if they want to, if the performance is good, they can consider to research scientist. That was in Switzerland. And Manchester also offered 3-year position, and they were going to support me for like, fellowship as well. So it was a tough choice because for me, I never been in industry, but I wanted to, go to the other side. So I wanted to see how life is on the other side. And IBM was sort of like, I was always fascinated by the research from IBM. And this was Manchester for 2D materials is also quite famous. So both were very good options. And it was a tough decision in my case. So how did I decide? Probably my decision was like, here I had more independence. Whereas in IBM, I was going to work on a specific topic. So that was molecular electronics. So based on that, I decided, did I regret my decision anytime? I think this is a strong thing that you have to tell yourself when you decide that you wouldn't regret regret your decision. There will be surely occasions where you would regret your own decision. That is definitely going to happen. But you may have to look at the positives and the circumstances what led you to make that particular decision. So it could be personal reasons, it could be your long-term planning, or it could be short-term convenience, whatever it is, right? So just remember that, and you have done the best, at that moment. So I think if you, but definitely there will be, times and occasions where you will regret, try to regret, but just stop yourself from doing that, looking at reasons, what led you to the decision. So hopefully that answers your questions. And Doreen, you want to add something?
Yeah. I mean, that's very interesting. I like the fact that you said that, sometimes this will come at you, especially when you get to a difficult point with your choice. You'll be like, oh, I should have just been at IBM, and I'm just, but I understand. For me personally, I've not really had to choose so much. I think the only time I had to choose was choosing to come to University of Sydney or going to University of Nottingham. So it happened. My Schlumberger scholarship was to University of Sydney. But, the supervisor that I knew, I've been working with him virtually. And then a few weeks before I arrived Sydney, he was transferred. He took up a new job at University of Nottingham. And he gave me an option to stay back in Sydney. But I knew for a fact that he was a good supervisor and I wanted to work with him. And I abandoned my admission in Sydney. And I followed him and then applied for an admission in Nottingham. And then I followed him to Nottingham and worked in Nottingham. It all worked out very well. And I'm so glad that I made the right choice at that time. I don't know if that's close to what you were asking, but allow me to slot this in. We're all women, largely, and we've come from communities or cultures that support the life cycle of a woman, go to school, at some point get married, at some point have children. I think that in a gathering like this with women, it's important for some things to be said. With regards choices and, options, I would say that we are all investing so much in ourselves. Like you, the Kalpana fellows, you're investing so much. You're putting down the time you've spent here. You could have watched a lovely movie, but you've spent here to listen to us, and you've spent so many other times, listening to other people, working on your projects. You've invested so much on yourself. What I'm going to say with choices here is make a good choice of a life partner. Make a good choice of someone who is going to support you. Make a good choice of someone who will not water down your efforts, who will not trivialize your efforts, someone who would celebrate you. If you see yourself this way, someone who would magnify you, someone who would amplify your efforts, someone who wants to see you at the top, not someone who is threatened by your drive, your work ethic, your commitments, the way you're getting, speaking engagements and, international features. Make a good choice for a marriage partner. The reason is because we want to see all of you at decision-making tables. We want to see you at board levels. We want to see you in those high places in STEM fields. And one of the major ways you can get there is if you have very good support at home. So make a good choice. Don't get carried away by options. Just think about your future. Think about how you're going to contribute to the world and make a good choice for the person you end up marrying.
That's an excellent point, Doreen, actually.
Yes.
So especially being in the women in STEM session, I think this is something very important. So of course, in the beginning of your careers, it's your parents and siblings who support you. But later part of your career, it is also important to have a supporting partner. In my own case, that is a very big reason behind where I am today. So I think, like as Doreen put it in very nice words, so you need someone who wants to see you at the top rather than being threatened. So that's really nice way to put it. So maybe since the session is almost coming to an end, I just want to answer this question on the chat.
One question, right?
Yeah. From Swati Sharma.
Yes.
Do you ever feel that you are not ready for the journey you want to pursue, and how do we tackle such problem? Yes, of course, there have been many occasions where I myself have, in my own journey, I always I had to rethink whether I'm ready for this or not, especially at that point of deciding to pursue PhD. I am coming from a family where we are the first generation. Myself and my brothers, we only have studied. My parents, they haven't, they don't have formal education. So in my own town, or there are not so many people I can look up to. And as I said, you guys are fortunate to be in such forums. I was never having such exposure there was no Kalpana for me, right? So there was always doubt in mind, whether I'm for this, I'm ready for this or not. So and as I said, in the beginning, it was always okay, I did bachelor's. That is where that's the college I had in my town. To pursue the master's, that's I have to go to a different place. I have to go to another town. That was a decision-making thing, whether I'm ready for this, whether my family is willing to, send me somewhere else. And, there's always concern for safety of the girls and a lot more questions, right? And being the first generation ourselves, we don't have too much guidance from anyone. So, yeah, of course, there are many points where I felt myself there was no, whether I am ready for this or not. But I think there is something in your own mind, that you want to do this, right? So maybe you have read, I used to read newspaper. That was my source of inspiration. So I used to read, there is a female column, they always used to write some examples of females who have been successful. Once in a week or once in 2 weeks, they used to list out some examples of, females who have been successful in various fields, not necessarily in science, but how they have overcome, their own difficulties and gone to the top stage. So in those times, those were kind of inspirational stories to read. So I think what you wish, where you want to see yourself, this drives you more. And obviously there will be points where you may feel you may not be ready for the journey, but you have to take a leap of faith. Sometimes you just have to pat yourself and take that step forward. Maybe be prepared that you may even fail, but it's okay. So I think that's definitely going to happen in one stage or the other. That happened with me when I went decide that I want to do PhD. That was something which still today I don't think anybody in my town, especially girls have done, right? So yeah. So I think it's your own, where you want to see yourself that drives you. So.
Thank you.
Doreen, you want to add anything?
Doreen, would you like to add something?
Doreen, you are muted.
Yeah, sorry. I think you've absolutely nailed it. So for me, I'm a Christian and I come from this perspective that, everything that we have, every idea, every energy, every resources, every wealth that we have is for certain reasons. Apart from giving us a good life here on earth, God has put some things into our hands for the next, someone coming behind us. You get some kind of resources, some kind of wealth, and then something just tells me that not everything is for me. This is also supposed to bless someone, probably the next generation or something. So when I think of that, I think of my responsibility that I want to be a blessing to humanity. I try my best to keep going. It's not easy. Let's not make it look like there are superhumans here. I mean, you saw from her CV of failures. What do you think happened after every rejection? I'm sure at some point you would say that, oh, I don't want to do a postdoc anymore. You know what? I'll just stay back home. I don't want to go anywhere. It's not easy. But rejection after rejection after rejection, she kept putting herself there. Probably because she thinks she has a calling that she wants to be a light to other women or to other young girls. There will definitely be something. But when those bad days come, don't allow it define you. If you need to take out a while to rest, it's fine. If you need to take out the time to recover, read a book, go on a retreat, find yourself, that's fine. But don't forget that you have an agenda, you have a purpose. You have a God-given purpose. And if you have a very good understanding of that purpose, even when you hit roadblocks, even when you hit disappointments, you would bounce back.
Thank you. Thank you, Doreen, and thank you, Radha. I think we have covered a lot of topics, right from careers, interdisciplinary fields, professional tracks, personal problems that actually women should be very careful about. And thank you for bringing that up, Doreen. And a special thanks to you. It's really late in Sydney, so sorry we went 15 minutes over. But it was great having you with us, both of you. I'm sure our fellows are highly inspired and looking forward to be in touch with you in future. Maybe they will work with you in future. Let's see. Thank you so much. Thanks to all the fellows who are still here. I know it's Saturday evening, so maybe you can enjoy the rest of your evening now. Thank you, and I'll close the session now.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And I wish you all the best with everything that you lay your hands to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wish all the best to each one of you, even those who attended and also those who will listen to this recording. It's my pleasure to be able to be part of this today. Yeah. And any questions that you were not able to ask, you want to write to me by email, you're welcome to. You're more than welcome to. Okay. Thank you.
Both of you are very
Thank you,
fantastic.
everyone.
We really love to have both of you. That's why we keep troubling you again. There's a new batch. Please come. Please come. You guys are really fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you. Bye.